I never thought in a million years I'd have to make this video. What's up, guys? It's Michael from the Leg Kick, and Tyron Woodley, Jake Paul, squaring off August 28th. Lord, if you want to punish us. Okay, let's take this a little seriously and get into it here. If you take a look at the title, then you've probably put two and two together and I think Jake Paul has really stepped in it here and bit a little more than he could chew. And I'm going to tell you why. But before I do, I just want to preface by telling you what this video isn't. This isn't a video to trash Jake Paul as a boxer. I think as currently constituted, what Jake Paul is a regular guy who can box better than the average person and can be competitive against an amateur. Not all amateurs, because there's some who are really good, but in comparison to a lot of people, he's a pretty good boxer. And honestly, that's fine. And if he wants to see how far he can go in boxing, that's fine. But the anger comes from the fact that he's a horrible human being. And I get that. I honestly do. But as a boxer, I think he's on the right path. He clearly takes it seriously. He clearly isn't cutting corners in his training. And clearly he's improving more and more with each fight. I also want to preface by saying that in a vacuum, I think that Jake Paul fighting guys who aren't very good is fine. If you take a look at some of the all-time greats, especially in the modern era, you're going to find that their early record are against guys who aren't very good. They're not very good. For example, if you take a look at Floyd Mayweather's record, you'll find that he didn't face an opponent who went on to have a winning record until his 7th fight. Obviously, I'm not talking about Floyd's amateur experience. That speaks for itself and how good that was. And he's also an Olympian. So clearly, Floyd was facing tough guys already. Also goes more into what I'm talking about. No matter how good you were in training or in the amateur level, or even if you're an Olympian, when you're a pro boxer, the game is that you build guys up. Even if in the amateurs, they proved that they could clearly face killers right away. And honestly, that's fine. I think in some parts, Loma has kind of spoiled the game for a lot of people because Lomachenko faced killers from day one. And that's okay too. I respect both ways of doing it. There are many different ways to build a boxing career. So, all that to say that Jake Paul facing YouTubers and retired mixed martial artists for his first couple of fights is kind of par for the course. Yeah. Which is weird to say, but it is kind of par for the course. You're going to face bums at first. I think where people get mad is that he's getting money and attention for doing that, whereas accomplished combat sports athletes facing each other are making peanuts in relation to Jake Paul fighting way lesser competition. And yeah, I can see the anger, but that's not on Jake Paul. That's on you for tuning into watching Jake Paul fight, and on the organizations who pay those great combat sports athletes peanuts. You know who you are. I'm not going to get into it. That's another video for another time. With that being said, I think Tyron Woodley's gonna beat Jake Paul, and if Jake Paul doesn't mind his P's and Q's in this fight, I think he might get knocked out. Now, why do I think this? Well, if you take a look at what Tyron Woodley's good at, Woodley is a former All-American wrestler. Woodley has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but Tyron Woodley's calling card, especially later in his career before hitting the decline, was that he was a knockout artist, which means he has transferable boxing skills. And he's shown those transferable boxing skills at the highest level of mixed martial arts, which is full of killers. Keep in mind, this is the same guy who fought against Darren Till, Wonderboy Thompson, and Calvin Gastelum, and beat all 3 of them. So this is a guy who can strike and has transferable skills that can move over to boxing. And just to build on that point, a lot of combat sports athletes have transitioned from boxing to MMA and MMA to boxing and have done relatively well. More often than not, guys can transfer over. In fact, a lot of kickboxers and Thai boxers go on to become champion, and a lot of mixed martial artists go on to have pretty flattering boxing records. So it's not impossible. If done right, a mixed martial artist can be a good boxer. I think where guys struggle is when you're Conor McGregor and you take on one of the best boxers in the world without having a boxing match yet, thinking that your mixed martial arts experience is going to just transfer over against the best. But Tyron Woodley is not facing one of the best, clearly, and he has a lot of tools, including a booming right hand, which will transfer to boxing just fine. And that leads me to the other point I want to make here. Tyron Woodley has power. He has 7 knockouts to his name, some of them extremely brutal, like the one against Josh Koscheck. Josh Koscheck going down like that, especially during that time when he was super hated, still gets me. But the point is that if Jake doesn't mind his P's and Q's, he could beat Josh Koscheck. And to be honest, this is what kind of makes this fight a little admirable for Jake. Taking on a guy who can knock you out, who is dangerous, is admirable. It's just, he's not a boxer. And I think that's what makes people mad. He's not a boxer. He's not a guy with boxing experience in the conventional sense. Not even in the amateur circuit. And again, I've made my opinion known on that. I'm not going to get into it. But at the end of the day, my points are this. I don't fault Jake Paul for doing what he's doing, but I think this one was about a step too far for him in terms of competition he should face. In fact, I think he would have probably been better off facing a 1-0 or an 0-1 boxer who's just trying to make it in the boxing scene. But regardless, that's my opinion. Let me know what you think. Comment, subscribe, like, whatever. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.